Good morning, everyone. All right, there's a lot of conversations going around about the changes in the news and the NAR lawsuit settlement and all that. So we just wanted to make sure you're all completely informed about what is happening and the key points about this and how it's happening. First and foremost, don't panic about this stuff, guys. It's there's always going to be change in our industry constantly. Now, this is going to be a crazy impacted change that we haven't seen, but as real estate professionals, you'll mold and mesh. And I'm going to show you some key points today and show you how you can prepare yourself. Believe me, there's time. We've got plenty of time right now to get this done. We got plenty of time to learn your new way of doing things and how you should have probably been doing it long before this time. And if you were, then this is just going to be the easiest transition ever. If you haven't, there's going to be a few things you need to prepare yourself for. All right. So first and foremost, I'm going to share my screen and show you kind of a few key points in this lawsuit settlement that you need to prepare yourself for. Okay. So first and foremost, right here, we've got plenty of time. Okay. Plenty of time there. The court needs to approve this still. All right, it hasn't been approved yet. I imagine it probably will get approved, pretty good chance. Also, DOJ, are they good with these changes? Because their big thing is that the DOJ just wants to make sure there's a lot of change in the way NAR has been doing things. And so those are the two things that still need to happen. Plenty of time. Now, if this does happen and go through, it'll probably be sometime around mid-July, could be June. But probably mid-July is when it's projected to take effect. Okay, mid-July. One of the key words that you're going to be hearing often is decoupling. Decoupling. All right, and we had put out a video a while back about this where it talks about the difference in decoupling. What does that mean? It means two. It means two. All right, you've got a listing agent and you got a buyer's agent. All right, and how do you decouple that? Very simple way to do it. And we'll cover that here shortly. Okay. As we jump into this, number one key point is seller agents and buyer's agents are individually separate. Okay. So you've got a seller's agent, you got a buyer's agent. Listings, when you deal with your listing agreements, you deal with your listing appointments. Your listing appointments, you've been doing this for a while. You're actually negotiating commission. Okay. So you're pretty good on it if you're a listing specialist. This isn't going to affect you much at all as a listing specialist. So you're pretty good at that, all right? You negotiate your commission. Buyer's agents, on the other hand, have not been the best at it. Now, I will say in some states, somewhat like Idaho, you're really good at it in Idaho. Most agents do a really good job at getting the buyer agency agreement signed. All right. Now, there are some of you that are newer in the business that have not been in the Idaho region. It's time to get back to doing that. You got to get that buyer agency agreement signed. We've been preaching that in the coaching world forever, that you need to have buyer agency agreement signed. Now, for a long time, though, it was easy to say because we could tell them that, let's look at some of these listings you're looking at. As you can see, the commission that's being offered is really low. Okay, really low. I'm sorry, really low. It's down to maybe 2%. All right, 2.5%. So my pay as a buyer's agent is 3%. And what do you get from me? One is I'm going to be showing you every property on the market as fast as they hit the market. You're going to get them. I'm going to set you up on the My MLS search so that you can actually see them as fast as they hit the market. It's much faster than all these third-party companies out there. That's the way we used to say it, right? You key up on me, we used to say it. You're going to get them right away, and then we're going to get you in there as fast as we can possibly get you in there so that we can have your best shot at getting this property, that your dream home that you've always wanted. All right. Now, our value is we're also going to be negotiating the transaction to get it the lowest possible price you can get it for to save you a ton of money. All right. All the negotiation side is going to be in there. Plus, I'm going to help run the transaction throughout the entire transaction process, all the way until the point I get to give you the key. And that is a 3% commission. All right. So that's the way we've been doing it forever. You don't do it much different. The only difference is now you're required to do that. All right. That's a new rule. You're going to have to do that buyer agency agreement now. All right. And there's several different ways you can get that signed. It's not a difficult form to get signed. Those of you that are a little nervous to do it need to realize you got to get out of your comfort zone. All right. Get out of that comfort zone because it's the new way of doing things. You got to get a buyer agency agreement signed. From what I'm hearing, you can't even submit an offer unless you have a buyer agency agreement signed. Okay, so you need to get it signed. So start practicing yesterday. Get them signed now. Buyer agency agreements for every buyer you have must get signed. Get used to that. Okay. All right. No more automatic offers of buyer compensation in the MLS. What does that mean? In the MLS, you're no longer going to see how much you're going to get paid if you're representing a buyer. It's not going to be in there anymore. It's officially going to be out. Okay, it's out of there now. All right, so you won't see that in there. You've got to negotiate it per transaction, just like a seller's agent, guys. Per transaction, they're negotiating their compensation, how much they're going to get paid. As a buyer's agent, you're negotiating now per transaction your compensation. So getting that signed does not mean that the buyer is going to have to pay all that 3%. Because as a buyer, as a seller's agent, guys, you should be also educating your sellers. You should always be educating the buyers and sellers in the world as you're helping them. You're the professional. You're the professional. You need to be educating those sellers. All right. So this is how I would suggest doing it. And it may not be the perfect way, but Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller. So my fee to do all of this, and you show them your value proposition, my fee to do all of this is 3%. Okay. That's my fee. All right. Now, here's my suggestion though. There's going to be a lot of buyers out there. They're going to have buyers, agents out there showing homes. And a lot of the competition out there is going to be offering up a percentage to that buyer's agent. Now, you can offer up 2%, up to 3%, or even 4%, 5%, depending on how much you want to offer. You're going to be competing with a lot of other people out there. I would suggest having that prepared, having that aside in your head on how much you're willing to do that. Also, some buyers may need their closing costs paid, such as VA non-allowables, such as USDA loans, such as other government down payment assistance. They might need a little extra help. And if that's the best offer you have, it's good to set it up for success, not failure. Set up for success and have some money set aside, prepared. Doesn't mean it's going to come out of your account. It's going to come out of the equity of your house. When we sell it, there's that equity and you're going to get paid the equity, but a portion of that equity, have it set aside to go towards maybe paying a buyer's agent or that brings a willing and able buyer, maybe paying towards closing costs, maybe paying towards all these other potential things that they could be paying for. So let's think about that. How much of that? Let me do a net sheet for you to show you what that would look like. And then sellers, agents, do a net sheet for your sellers and have them sign it, okay? Showing them approximately what their net will be if they pay 6%, 7%, 5%, whatever it is you want to put in that net sheet, and have them agree to that they're willing to do that. They're willing to have that. Now, just know that could go towards anything, paying a buyer's agent, paying closing costs, paying whatever they want, all right? That's why I'm saying 5, 6, 6%, 7%. Doesn't matter because, if they're going to pay buyer's closing costs, which is pretty typical in the real estate world of paying a portion of buyer's closing costs, depending on what market you're in. If it's in a seller's market or buyer's market, it just depends. You might be paying more buyer's closing costs. And buyer's market, more common than none, you're going to be paying a lot of buyers closing costs, sellers. So what does that look like? Let's just say typically 3% at a $250,000, $1,000 sales price, right? And lower it is, it's usually a little higher because some of them are not standard percentages. They're not standard flat rates. Some of them are percentages. So what is that closing cost? At a $100,000 sale, it's probably closer to 4% total closing costs. You never know. All the way up to, 500, 600,000, or even way higher than that. It might be anywhere from 1.5% to 2% towards buyer's closing costs. So you can add all that in there and explain to the sellers up front so they're prepared to pay buyer's agents commissions and prepared to pay this money. They have it ahead of time. It's an easier conversation later when you start receiving offers. Say decoupling. That's what that means, decoupling. So understanding that buyer's agency agreement signed up front. All right. So we've talked about that already. You do it as a seller's agent. So you must do it that. Listings have always been the most successful agents. So listings, think about this. How much easier is it going to be for you to go out there and get for sale by owners now? Probably pretty easy because for sale by owners are willing to pay 3%. Most of them are. I don't know. Most of them are. I don't know a whole lot that don't. They're willing to pay a buyer's agent that brings them a willing and able buyer. So as a listing agent, is it a lot easier now to go talk to them and say, hey, so now we've decoupled. You don't want to say that, but so hey, I'll list your place for 3%. Now just know the buyers have to come negotiate. All right. Then again, if I get it out there, we may pick up a buyer out there. There's going to be a potential for a lot more pocket listings out there going on now, guys. A lot more. All right. Now, here's another thing to think about. I want you to think about these brands down here. Zillow's, Open Door, Homes.com. I'm going to show you another screen real quick. Okay. I'm going to share something with you. There's a lot of different companies out there like Homes.com that's been doing tons of marketing out there all through the Super Bowl and all that. And used to be able to pay for leads through Homes.com. They shut that off a while ago. I used to pay for leads through Homes.com. I called my rep, couldn't even get a hold of my rep anymore. Ended up talking to their customer service, and they said, yeah, we no longer do that. Now we focus on marketing your listings. This is, if you just type in simply Homes.com, what's the very first thing it says right here? Trusted by 100 million buyers. Only Homes.com connects you directly to the person that knows the most about a property for sale, the listing agent. Did you catch that? Now, being part of a multiple listing service, being part of NAR and all that stuff, it has always been a requirement. You pretty much had to do it. If you wanted to say you're a realtor, it's a registered trademark, right? There's a lot of people frustrated right now with a lot of these entities. And over time, I want you to prepare yourself. Over time, these entities might you might see a lot more pocket listings where people are now listing their properties direct to Homes.com or Zillow or some of these other entities out there. That may change and start to happen. Just know, guys, we don't know where we're going here. We don't know. But I do know there's companies like this that have been preparing. I do know there's companies like this that either could foresee it or they got really lucky. They either saw the future was going to be happening or they got really lucky. So remember how you used to see signs down the billboard of 2% to list your house, 1.5% to list your house from all these companies. You'd see billboards on the freeway. Get prepared. Some of those companies might be coming back. Okay. It's going to be a lot easier. It could potentially be a lot easier to market direct. There, technology that changes all the time, things that are always coming out, thinking forward, futuristic, the future of real estate that starts to happen. Technology is always being created. I can foresee now that we're not going to be, just know, we're not going to be posting 2.5% to a buyer's agent anymore on the MLS. That is no longer a thing. It is officially going to be gone. Okay. No longer. It's right here. And this is right out of NAR. It's right in there. It says right here that, let's see, agreement to put place in the MLS rule prohibits offers or brokers' compensation in the MLS. No longer going to be posting it. So what's going to hold people back from no longer even putting it in the MLS if Homes.com starts offering to syndicate your listings to Zillow, Realtor.com, the 80-something different websites across the nation. All right, what if new technology comes to play where they will have IDX feeds that will syndicate to all these companies for you where you no longer have to put it in the MLS? No one knows for sure, guys. I'm not telling you that's happening. I'm just a forward thinker. I like to think about the future, how things are going to change, how this all might change in the future for all of us. So just know that all this stuff could be coming to play. What's most important for you to prepare yourself for as a buyer's agent or as a seller's agent? Most important is to prepare yourself for number one, decoupling as a listing agent, which means educate your sellers on the opportunity to have payment set aside for a buyer's agent or for closing costs or whatever it is. This is my fee, 3%. Prepare over here, potentially up to 5 or 6% to cover all these other fees. Do net sheets for your sellers. Prepare them. Do net sheets so they know what's going on and get them to sign it so they understand. I don't know how many times that saved my rear end at the end of close of escrow when they said, I didn't know I had to pay all these fees. And I said, well, here's your net sheet you signed, and it shows right there. Exactly. Oh, we did talk about that. The fee was no different. They just saw the closing sheet, and the closing sheet segregated it, decoupled it. So it's been happening forever. Stick to what you know best, guys. Do your net sheets up front. So you're explain to your sellers up front. Understand this stuff up front. Don't just go in there and be one of those agents that's going to be saying, "Oh, I'll list your house for 3%, blah, blah, blah. I'm saving you a ton of money." No, guys, educate sellers, because you're going to hurt yourself in the long run by doing that. When all of a sudden now you're receiving offers and all these people are asking for compensation, and you don't have one buyer's agent not asking for compensation, or buyers asking for closing costs. Set yourself up for success, not failure. Explain those things to your seller. Number two, buyer's agents. Get your buyer agency agreement signed. All right. You've been showing them for years and years and years agency relationships, right? It's the very first form in almost every single MLS across the nation. It's the very first form. So now show it to them and show them the buyer agency agreements. I'm gonna show you a couple more things here real quick, and then we'll get going, and then I'll wrap this up. Okay, so I'm gonna show you, go back to this screen of therealtor.com. This is the California Association of Realtors. Actually, this is the Idaho. This is Idaho forms, okay, for those of you over in Idaho. The broker agreement addendum. Now, I believe there's a very big potential. Actually, I know there's going to be some new forms coming out from most MLSs out there. Actually, I have this email right here talking about a lot of this. Right here, this is from Idaho Realtors Association. Talks about the different things going on. So right here, this is a broker agreement addendum. All right. And down here on the bottom, it has a box to change the fee. I imagine typically this was used for the seller's side, but there's a checkbox for the buyer's representation agreement sign, where that could be checked, and you can say, hey, I'm representing my buyer for 3%. So I have a feeling that this form is going to be changed, or a new form is going to be created. That's going to be where a buyer's agent submits up front how much they're wanting to get paid. The reason why I believe that is because in a lot of other MLSs, such as California Association of Realtors, has done this for years. This is a cooperative broker compensation agreement. It was revised in 2021, but it's been out for many, many years. And what this has is confirmation of MLS, confirmation compensation in the MLS. So I imagine that will be taken out, and is 3%. Guess what? The buyer and seller currently do not sign this, only the brokers. This is going to change. And this form will now change and be a form that a seller's agent signs and a buyer's agent. No longer brokers. Or maybe the brokers sign it too. I don't know. But the form's already there. In the past, the way this form was used is that in California, there's so many MLSs, like so many MLSs. You drive 15 minutes, you're in a new county, and you got a new MLS. If you're not part of that MLS, you can't see how much the compensation is. So the way you were supposed to be doing this, part of antitrust law if you weren't, was you were supposed to be submitting this up front to the agent saying, I am expecting to get paid 3%. Now this is how much I expect to get paid. Before you submit the offer, you would submit this form. Before you submit the offer, negotiated with the seller's agent, negotiated with the seller's agent or the seller broker. Everybody signs it, agreed to a commission, and then you submit the offer on the property. That's the way it was always supposed to be done. But a lot of people were doing what they weren't supposed to be doing, and they were submitting this with the offer. And they were writing in there. So they were negotiating direct with the seller. They weren't supposed to be doing that. But with the new law, now they're going to be doing that. Now they're going to be negotiating direct with the seller, the buyer's agent, on what they want to get paid. See how it changes quite a bit? So these are the things to prepare yourself for in the future that you're going to be having to do. I would start working on it now, or how about this? Yesterday, okay? Start doing this as of yesterday. Start preparing, start negotiating your commissions up front and get prepared, because this is going to change fairly rapidly if the DOJ agrees with it, if the courts agree with it. New forms are going to be starting to come out. You're going to start seeing sample ones come out from your state level. You're going to start seeing some things happening. So this is just a little bit for you to kind of prepare yourself for. Um, I'm sure it's going to be some Q&As coming out ahead of all this. So just get prepared. All right. All right, guys. I hope this helped today. If you have any questions, feel free to respond back and we can chat a little bit about it a little more. All right. We'll talk to you soon.